Great welcome. Thank you for stopping by on this little chat show, podcast, whatever you call it. Happy to have you. Uh, Thank you for stopping by. If you are a young Zimbabwean, this message is going to be for you. If you are an older Zimbabwean, this message is going to be for you as well. But um, if you are Zimbabwean, basically, this is for you. This is for us. I'm very happy to hang around, stick around, and around my experience mates, my culture mates, everything. We have found ourselves to be um, to be in this together. In other words, and I'm going to talk about something that's really been bothering me in a good way. It had to be it had to be brought out, and I know many people have actually had this conversation at the bar, the sports field, online, at home, school, church, you name it. But I have been thinking about post current leadership Zimbabwe. As we all know, we just didn't wake up in 1300 and there was Zimbabwe. Even in 980 AD, we didn't have Zimbabwe. In 3 AD, it was not Zimbabwe. But the landmass that we have today and call our own country has gone through different, many leadership groups, and all which had their own characteristics, and all had, in fact, I think, people that were forward looking. Um, the Mutapa state, the Uroji state, those that came before them, those that came after them, until colonization, the Rhodesian country, then Zimbabwe. But then we are still on an onward trajectory. We are still going forward. And hence, we need to start figuring out what we are going to want to have as a country, as a culture, as a society for this place that's confined by the borders as we have them today. Are we ready for that? Are you ready for that? I know so many people might not want to talk about it because the status quo is favoring them, and or this kind of talk induces fear in so many people's uh, lives. They get afraid, intimidated, and sometimes one might think even it's not even their right to do so, but it is. As long as you are part and parcel of that nation, that place, you definitely have a right to be heard, to contribute, to participate, and to do your bit, just like everybody else is. There's no need for us to leave Zimbabwe's fate in the hands of just a few. That is what leads us to where we are today. The situation that we are, it was our making. But of course, there were factors and conditions that were like ingredients that then got mashed up together and produced what we have today. Having said that, then, I am going to propose to you all that could we start today now, do something about in helping to shape a country that we want in the future. Of course, we'll have so many divergent thoughts and views and everything, but we can, in fact, find common ground. And, and I'm quite sure that many of us want our country to prosper, want our country to benefit each and every one of us. Right. That's normal thinking. Benefit everybody, not just me, not just you, not just the person down the road, not just the lady up the street, not just that grandma living in the next city, but all of us. It has to be a merit based society. So now, what are we going to then? How are we going to shape our country? Are we happy right now with the current leadership? Of course, there are many people who will say they are. There's some who will say they're not. There's some who are indifferent, in between, don't care. But I am not talking about the actual current actual leaders, the people. I'm talking about the system. The problems that we are facing in Zimbabwe today now are basically the they're predicated on a system that does not serve us. It's a, I'll hazard to say, it's a foreign system that was introduced or that was imposed upon us and has no characteristic that is of our own making. I'm not even saying that we should go back to the traditional way of leadership because there were so many other things that are not applicable today and might make it difficult for us to fit in this world. So adjustments necessary, but there are also so many disturbing, very concerning aspects of the system that we have today that are making it very difficult for us to actually achieve or realize our full potential as a nation. So things like the fear to criticize leaders, blind allegiance, this insane adulation, and many other things. Of course, everything in moderation. So that should be our point of departure. What kind of governing system are we happy with? Are we content with? Or are we at least comfortable with? Most of us. Of course, there are always going to be people who will not be content with any system whatsoever, unless if they are the ones who are the primary beneficiary of that system. But the rest of us, all we are used to compromising, and we have been compromising for the past 40 some years, almost 50 now, where we have been subject to leadership styles that we were not particularly chuffed with. We're not quite fond about. There's nothing that many of us will miss about, say, 1991 Zimbabwe or 1998 Zimbabwe, 2003 Zimbabwe, in terms of leadership styles. And I'm not going to go into details here because I'm talking to people who already know the situation at hand, what we're dealing with. So, what is it that we need to do? Shall we stand alone or engage the world? Should we withdraw from the world and study and see what the world is like from a distance? Because the world as it is now, particularly the West, having gotten obscenely rich, opulent from our resources as Zimbabwe and other African nations and non-African nations, Asian, you name it, they have come to a point where they're now uh, becoming overwhelmed by this late stage capitalism, which then is leading them to try and find who should they scapegoat, whose life should they made an absolute nightmare, and it usually becomes the African. And because we don't have a voice, a unified voice to really push back and to really hold them to account for what they did with regards to underdevelopment of Africa and exploitation of her resources, to us being then treated like utter garbage people when we try to at least follow those resources that came from us. And our leaders across the continent themselves do not know who they are because you find that they take the money from our society, from our nations, and then put it in the nations or in the economies that were responsible for the underdevelopment of Africa. And then they perpetuate this stereotype, this mistreatment of the African. They are the ones who have direct power to make changes that will bring respectability to our people. But instead, they play into the hands of the colonizer who left physically Africa, Zimbabwe, whatever other nation, but their systems are still in place. That is why you see most of our nations in Africa are basically producer nations. They produce either it's agriculture, minerals, and ship them off to the nations that were once colonizers and the newer colonizers who will then process, make final finished goods, and then they come back to us and sell at exorbitant prices. So it's we're not winning at the moment. So that's one of the reasons I'm saying, can you see how we've been put in this rut by the leadership? It's a leadership crisis in Zimbabwe, in Malawi, in Kenya. It's a leadership crisis that if you're young, like I said, you are the one that will inherit this crisis. And so we need to find ways to begin already to put into motion what we are going to do once this current leadership has gone. You get what I'm saying? That's what we need to do. That's why you're here. And thank you for that. That's why I'm speaking. Thank you for listening. So we've looked at the type of leadership that we've cultivated up to this point, the type of leadership that has people crushing each other's skulls, breaking each other's bones, lambasting each other verbally, abusing each other verbally and physically, just so that a few people could be in positions of power. Are we really clever people when we're doing such? I don't think clever people do that. It's very silly people that actually find themselves doing that. Clever people do not do that. So what we need to do is um, we need to make our resources work for us. We don't need to make our resources to work for other nations. And I'm quite happy with some developments that are taking place in Zimbabwe. It's not all doom and gloom. Um, but as a generation, as a member of a generation that was born and raised with a history, in a country with a history where I knew and heard that you could work, earn money, save money, retrieve it, buy property, and continue to do that. And of course, there are those that will say there were many other things that were not possible when it was Rhodesia. We know that. But then when we say we have independence today, we should not be unable to at least work and earn adequately in order to be able to raise a family, look after parents, and put aside some money for the future. So, if you are young today in Zimbabwe, you are part of a generation that stands between a painful past and a powerful future because all hope is not lost. We are the children of liberation, but we are also children of great disillusionment. And now we must become the architects of something new, something ours, to do away with the anachronism in our political realm, that of the reminders of the colonial past, laws, expectations, ways of living, and etc., etc. And like I said, the West doesn't need us anymore, but we don't need them either. We seem to be forgetting that we have what it takes to survive, to live for the next 1,000 years. God blessed us with everything that we need. We are tired of being labeled as something that we are not, while the people that we entrust with our votes, with our power for stewardship, are basically just looking after themselves and letting everybody else take care of themselves on their own, and dissension is squashed. Opposition is ridiculed, and it's a dangerous occupation to oppose those in power today. We shouldn't be living in a country like that's one of the things that we need to do away with when this leadership phase passes. We have to be able to sit back and say, hey, that was a very ugly chapter in our history. Today and now is a beautiful day, a new beginning, hope, togetherness, success, liberty, and great, great, great many things. Nobody is going to build Zimbabwe for us. We are but responsible for building our own nation. Building Zimbabwe will take a lot of work. It won't be shortcuts, it will be long cuts. It'll be doing things legitimately the right way and without fear, without favor, without trying to cheat the next person to make it. Because if we are doing it for all, then we will be obliged to work together. Our resources, our lithium, our platinum, our labor, our dreams, up to this day, really, they're still being extracted, just like they were during colonial times. We are running to the colonial nations today. We need to stop that then, because as long as we keep following them, they will keep treating us like we are nothing, speak a lot of nonsense about us, which we shouldn't be putting up with anyway. But because survival, we tolerate, we make excuses, but this must end. We are children of revolutionaries, and revolutionaries do not take or put up with nonsense. We need to build a Zimbabwe that we will not escape from. We need to build a Zimbabwe that has value, that honors its people. We need to build a Zimbabwe that gives every person dignity, a Zimbabwe that looks back at its past and takes from that past things that really helped us, things that worked for us. We must cultivate a spirit where everyone feels ready and equipped to participate socially, politically, economically. If you have talents, if you have gifts, can we start to direct those? Of course, at personal accumulation, but at also, and maybe at least donate 5, 10, 15, 20% of that to the nation for the next person to have a starting point. Let's leave behind the idea that only politicians can shape this country. That's that's the system that I'm talking about. Believing that only the MP, the councillor, only the president, the VP, the chief of police, the army general, the senator or whatever, those are the only people who have the right to build this country. No, that is so wrong. Those people are part and parcel of our nation, our effort, our national effort. And of course, we pay them to formulate and implement policies, to arbitrate, to ensure everybody gets the resources of the country, to ensure everybody, not just themselves, not that just a few people, but everybody. The system that we have today, we have unreasonable adulation of political players. That's where that's why we are where we are today. That's why they can send people to go beat up another person just because they are supporting a different candidate. That's why they then ignore us, or that's why they will grant tenders and other things, benefits to people that they are connected with. That's why they will invite investors who will then skip all the regulatory expectations of their own enterprises and pollute our environment, pollute our land, and mistreat our brothers and sisters while they are extracting wealth from our nation. We have become a nation that is tolerant, that is enabling a class of people to really be a danger, an existential threat, really. Adulation militates against our nation's success. You and me, the vendor down the street at the corner, the coders who learned, either they taught themselves or went to use it, MSU, NAST, Chinoi, the dancers, the farmers, the kids, the school teachers, the nurses. We are all in this nation and we are all expected to do our bit. We must do away with this antipathy for many meaningful voices in the dissenting crowd that we merely dismiss as sellouts or paid actors or uh, detractors of our freedom, which we need. We need those healthy opposition voices. We need a healthy opposition to anything, anybody who is in a position of power. They need to be challenged so that they can stay on their toes and not take us for granted. The system that we created is our main enemy, Zimbabweans. What we are to do is then to unite Zimbabwe's different communities, because I know we are all from different groupings. Some of us are Debele, some of us are Karanga, some of us are Venda, some of us are even Chewa, some of us are Manyika, some of us are the people from Motoko, people from Sanyati, people from Hadoma, Gwatemba, Ndabazinduna, Slobela, Uzumba Maramba Fungwe, some are from Karoi, Chinoi, some are from Balabala, Shangani, some are from Filabusi, everywhere. So we are all these different groups of people who still have to celebrate our diversity, but at the same time, by virtue of belonging, being in these borders that we have come to know as the country of Zimbabwe, although we didn't draw those, we have to work with what we have until such a time when we need to redefine what those borders mean also. Our differences, our languages should be preserved. We should have more of our languages in schools today. Tonga being taught in schools. Palanga being taught in schools. Shona being taught in schools all across the country. Debele taught in schools all across the country. Venda, you name it. Not just in particular, but because we want to be able to communicate, we want to be able to do business, we want to be able to do all these things. I really think artists, writers like Tsitsidanga Rembga or Ignatius Mabasa, I actually like his book Mapenzi, which is an English version coming at the end of this month called The Mad, that was translated by Tsitsim J. Mutiti. Uh, Very interesting read. But what these people have taught me, Sol Gwakuba Nyati, is that Sol Gwakuba Nyati? Or Patisa Nyati? Uh, Sol Gwakuba Ndlovu, pardon me. We have people like uh, Enias Chigwedere, Mordecai Muchkinei, and many other writers who really taught us our history. Um, they have done so more than even the politicians. Even some of them love to brag about being great teachers or whatever. That's politics. And politics is just one of the banes of our existence, but especially in the manner in which we practice our politics. But if you look at these people, the authors I mentioned, through their writings, they have taught us a lot. Our history, our society, our culture, and they've shown us that reclaiming our languages and stories is part of healing from this colonial trauma, which is why we have a warped system that we have today. So this leads me to also wanting to talk about our justice system, the policing system, and the prison reform. Uh, I've had this conversation before. Sometimes, before the arrival of the colonizer, the white man, I have yet to find if there has been any evidence for jails in our societies. I mean, did people just get excommunicated from society? Did people get killed after being found stealing? But I remember there was a lot of social um, service. In other words, the elderly people were taken care of. Um, People, those who have had bad harvests, would be taken care of in any harvest season, taken care of by things like Zundera Mambo, where and also I remember very well. I read Ken Mufuka Zimbabwe, where he was talking about that it was such an honor or for one to be a king in the past or a chief, one had to give up their wealth or give it all up, give it to the state. They would own nothing and use their own wealth to help the poor and the disadvantaged in their society, feed those that would show up at the king's royal palace. It was the king's personal wealth that was using. This was so that some people would refuse or run away or avoid, do anything to avoid being a king because that meant their wealth was going to go. But I am yet to see how people dealt with crimes. Because if you think about it, a long time ago, and I think when I heard also that when you're on a journey, a long distance trip, and you are getting hungry, and it's harvest time, you come across a field that has ripe crops, sugarcane, sweet um, uh, watermelons. You would, in fact, be allowed to sit down in a field. Then you would help yourself to whatever you can help yourself while you're sitting down, and you know put your rinds together nicely, put them on the corner there, and then when you have rested enough, you carry on with your journey. So it was, in fact, it was a system where people knew that other people might need what they have, and nobody was quite selfish. This is mine, don't touch it. People would still be there for each other. In cases of things like murder, somebody murders a family member, somebody's family member, they would be arbitration. Then there would be punishment, kupedza ngozi, and then there will be kuregerera, and then there will be kuwirirana, and then of course, part and parcel of that punishment would be to take a child, preferably a child from the family of the offender, to give to the family uh, that would have lost a member through that murder. So, of course, not good for the child, but they, the family that received the child, wouldn't take the child and abuse them. They would treat them just like a member of the family. They like it's their family member that had come right back. So those if we are to base our past, our government, our present system, and some might say we're far too gone. Yes, we are, but also that doesn't mean that we have to not start trying. We have to start somewhere. And I'm not saying we should eliminate jails and completely and everything, but we have to at least make our justice system restorative. And I understand and I love what's happening in most jails today, where people being taught to do physical work, People are graduating from high school. People are graduating from vocational courses, being taught so many different skills that will help them to integrate when they get back out in society, if they are to get back out of society into the society. So I like that. That's the Africanness. That's our nature. And I look at the jails in the West, in the Western world. You'll find that most of them are literally punitive, just to punish and not to restore or reform people. So that becomes our difference. We are different from these people. We are, in fact, I feel this is my thinking. The world as it is right now is currently going through a very ugly phase, and it might not get better because we are living in late stage capitalism, and capitalism, it loves to cannibalize itself or the people that support it. It cannibalizes them, and especially at this late stage where accumulation is now unfettered, and people who have accumulated capital have just become unhinged and detached from real life, from humanity, which is something that we are not and are probably going to experience pretty soon. I'm talking about society wide in terms of Ubuntu. Our Ubuntu is still intact, and we all are aware of what it is, which is something lacking in these highly capitalistic societies of the West. All they encourage is rugged individualism, which is not something that we were taught or we will ever teach our children. And I feel like Ubuntu is what is going to save this world, as a matter of fact. Ubuntu is going to save us and save the rest of the world. That's again where it started, where Africa being the cradle of mankind, it will be the savior of mankind. Just watch it. So what we need to do in the post current leadership society is our police will need to serve, not to intimidate. Our prisons have to have more, give people their dignity, of course, and also train them in order to reform them, which is happening. Most of it is happening, but living conditions are still squalid. That's not way for human beings to live. So let's not destroy, but build. And we can start now, today, right now. Let's shape our justice system that corrects, not one that supports silences, one that aids and abets those who are trying to usurp our rights. Because a nation that brutalizes its people cannot claim to be rebuilding, cannot even rebuild, because there is always going to be horrible and terrible treatment to the people. What we need to do, fellow Zimbabweans, is to approach this nation building exercise with the correct mindset, with equanimity, as we have benefit of hindsight to see what does and does not work, especially in this fast changing world. We must catch up real quick so that we are able to set the tone, which in fact we haven't been doing in so many years. We have been playing catch up the entire time as a nation, as a group of nations. So there are things that we need to do, Zimbabweans. We absolutely need to do. Um, we need to improve our medicine and science. I mean, 2020, when that COVID thing happened, even when Ebola has happened and everything, we I watched with great sorrow as I was watching our leaders, our countries caught unaware. Nobody knew how, if it had gotten serious, how this scourge was going to spare us. How was it going to? How were we going to save ourselves. So what we had to do was to wait for the West, the East to develop remedies, and then we would beg for those, and then they come to us. That's not how we should be. We should create medical departments that deal with preparedness, that anticipate these pandemics, that are led and run by people who are dedicated, serious scholars, serious medical people who will serious researchers who research and come up with solutions that are homegrown. I'm talking about we have it all. I mean, people ended up using Zumbani, right? We have also other medicinal plants, Mfanchimuka, Chifumuro, and generations of herbal wisdom passed down through our elders. We should. We should have people that would then compile all that information, write it down, and save it for the future generations or for use during our lifetime. Why should we throw what we have away? I mean, we threw it away because when the colonizers came, the Europeans said everything that had to do with us was diabolic and had to be discarded. And then we had to rely on their medicines, on their pills that they crafted, mimicking nature. Of course, everything has its beginning, has its origins in nature. But now we even living in a very interesting time. Imagine clinics where AI helps diagnose illnesses, but herbal remedies are also researched and respected and used. We don't need to choose between tradition and modernity. We can blend both. Just like Professor Claude Mararike argued in his work on indigenous knowledge systems. He was right. He was onto something. The thing is, there's no follow up. There's no legislation to necessarily harness what is ours, and I've seen it. It's a system. It's a habit that we tend to adopt foreign solutions rather than homegrown solutions for the most part. But it seems as if now we are being forced to actually try and adopt our own solutions, and I like that. I like the fact that the West is, say, hey, we don't necessarily need to do this for you. You can do it for yourselves. And then they might have reasons that are nefarious, like we just want to see these people suffer, but we won't because we are better people like that. But I just want you to imagine this. Imagine growing up, waking up, going into this forest teeming with trees, shrubs, flowers, and every other plant that has healing powers. Imagine working, taking care of, being a steward of those wonderful forests, which adds to wonderful oxygen in the air to breathe and at the same time being harvested for medicine. Our research labs teeming with educated people studying and furthering the research, doing what God put us on this planet to do, to be stewards of his garden. We can definitely do this. Right now, our hospitals and clinics don't have any money because we have to set up these manufacturing plants, not set up, I'm sure, but maybe import, purchase from overseas or something. Overseas in the West, in the East, South, we import these medicines. Um, and we just make our own and we sell the surplus for extra money. I mean, we live in a very good point period of life because of this technology. But even with technology, we must not and we cannot allow or afford to wait for Silicon Valley to save us, to give us these products. Zimbabwe's youth, Zimbabwe's grown people must lead in developing homegrown technology for food security, smart irrigation, energy independence, disaster forecasting, military, you name it. We also need pioneering revolutionary technology to reward the people that come up with these inventions. I mean, look at climate change right now. Droughts, floods, erratic rainfall. Climate change isn't a Western thing only. It's our crisis too. We have been already seeing the disruption of our harvests. Everything has just been going haywire. What we need now is there are so many plants that will go extinct if this is to continue. There's so many plants that will not become viable for our environment, and people will starve. Less food, reduced food. But if we can today, like I've seen China creating new varieties of rice that grows super fast in probably less than 6 months, it'll be ripe. They're eating it. Nutritionally, it's still good. And I've seen some countries, even companies, having seed banks for indigenous plants in different countries, data driven climate models. They are able to predict and prepare better. But when we live as if we were in 1763, where we would just look at the sky and hope that it would rain, or perform some rain dance for that rain, why should we do that when we have today, when we have technology, when we have software systems that can de- collect data and create climate models and advance our farming techniques? We need all those things. We need to fund all that for ourselves through innovation hubs. And I'm quite happy about the user innovation hub. I have seen this innovation hub to be quite a beautiful um a beautiful, I would say, invention, really. Not invention, but initiative. The University of Zimbabwe has partnered with these different companies. It says that a this hub, the main reason why we have this hub is to promote growth of a research and innovation driven entrepreneurial ecosystem that responds to national, regional, and global needs by delivering knowledge based goods and services to industry and commerce and society. Its role is to provide a dynamic research and innovation environment in overseeing the implementation of the university's research and innovation strategy and policies, spurring innovation and advancing knowledge towards technological advancement and generation of new ideas and intellectual property. It's beautiful. It's amazing. This is one of the things that we need to take advantage of, Zimbabweans. If you have an idea, if you are an innovator, get in touch with these guys. I don't care what they say. Get in touch with them and let's work together. And I've also seen another beautiful, um, a very beautiful initiative. The Zimbabwe government passed an act that was called the ZEDA Act, Zimbabwe's Investment Promotion Agency. Here's the act. It actually is a very beautiful. It's a very beautiful. If you can go online, you will find it. The Zimbabwe Investment Act. It is it is an act by our government that seeks to promote investment in Zimbabwe. It is an act that seeks to promote the what it says is it's an act to provide for the promotion, entry, protection, and facilitation of investment, to provide for the establishment of the Zimbabwe Investment and Development Agent, to provide for one-stop shop. I'm reading the act right now. To provide for one-stop investment services center, to repeal the Zimbabwe Investment Authority uh, Act, Chapter 1430, the Special Economic Zones Act, Chapter 1434, and Joint Ventures Act, chapter 22:22, and to provide for matters incidental to or connected to the foregoing and enacted by the Parliament of Zimbabwe. So it is a very beautiful uh, establishment. And ZEDA exists too, according to them. They have a website, zedainvest.com. Their about page says that they are there to promote, plan, and implement investment promotion strategies, facilitate entry and implement investor plans, establish and regulate special economic zones, promote, review, and recommend public private partnerships, provide aftercare and monitoring to investors, promote investments into all parts of Zimbabwe. And recently, they launched Investor Services, a DIY portal that allows you to register. Either you, it has information on how to apply for ZEDA investment license, apply for special economic zone permits, apply for, have access to investment opportunities, and then you can join their mailing list, and there's a user portal that you can get. They have advice on how to invest in Zimbabwe. Uh, they have support on how to set up your business, and they say that you can get your business set up real quick and easy. Zeta issues investment licenses within 7 working days. They have their one-stop shop online. If you go to zetainvest.com, they you will be able to either um, um, you'll be able to go through the menu, invest, grow, key sectors, doing business, investor service, DIY portal, about Zeta. So if you can do much of the things online, then Zimbabwe is getting better. So we need to leverage on that and build on that. Something good has already happened. And where good is happening, we always are supposed to say it as it is. If it is good, it is good. And we have to applaud those who are in positions to make this happen. And where they are not making good progress, we also need to talk about it, because the system as it is today has managed to put people in this mind frame where they exaggerate or will be quick to praise the leadership for the things that are good, of course, that they have done. But you'll find out that sometimes those things that the leadership has done that is good is not necessarily uh, the best implementation of that particular thing. Things could be done better. Either the money that was taken by those projects was way above the normal, the tender and contracts given to the vendors and other partners were inflated. But then people are only forced to look at what has been done. But as a nation, we must look at the picture, the whole entire picture. We just are not supposed to look at only one aspect, because that then causes the continuation of the that causes the continuation of a system of mediocrity. If you see what I'm trying to say, where we are quick to clap our hands and cheer and support things that are not helping us. So we need to protect our resources. We need to protect our climate. We need to speak the truth. For example, I'm gonna talk about it. The lithium in Goromonzi has really, I've looked and heard some people talk about that the lithium is not benefiting the people of Goromonzi necessarily. It's just benefiting the miners. It's just benefiting uh, just a few people. Zimbabwe's wealth must serve its people. I mean, we cannot have these people. Investors will love them to come to Zimbabwe, but there's one thing I wanted to talk about. This Zeta thing. it seems as if it's mainly bent on attracting foreign investment. Of course, there is a section, there is also some effort to actually woo local entrepreneurial ideas and entrepreneurs. Absolutely wonderful. And I feel like we should dedicate 80% of our efforts and resources to causing our local entrepreneurs to invest in the country rather than foreign entrepreneurs. Because when we have foreign companies coming in to work in our country, we then have issues like the um, we have issues with with how they treat our people. We need to we need to the resources, the minerals. I mean, I know there was that law that was passed where the minerals were not to be taken out of Zimbabwe, but processed in Zimbabwe, to be processed, but kept in Zimbabwe, be processed in Zimbabwe at least to some greater degree. There's more. I remember there was that 15 billion diamonds that went missing. Uh, we should pass laws that ensure that the community benefits. If anyone wants to start mining in a particular area, everybody who is living in that area needs to benefit one way or another. These deals are for the people, not for just the government authorities who bring in these investors. We also need to digitize mining records for transparency. We need accountability, accountability. There was that mine, Acadia, that's operated by a Chinese um, subsidiary of Zhejiang Huayu Cobalt that runs operations in Zimbabwe, the DRC, Indonesia. But we have been nations that provide resources and minerals to the world, but we are the poorest. Why is it that these countries that have barely as many minerals as we have, they they are thriving and we are not? Why are we helping other countries uh, build up their gold reserves? They have no gold in their nations, but they are building up their reserves of gold using our own minerals. Our mineral resources should not be curses. We need to create programs and protections against abuse of the environment as well, so that what comes out of these relationships we have with the companies that come in is beneficial to our people. Even when they are gone, long gone, our people will still be able to have a clean environment, clean air, clean water, good ground to put crops in that they can eat after. We must encourage people to come out and speak. Let's gather information, people of Zimbabwe. Post this current leadership, we need to be able to, every activity that is conducted by the government has to be known to the people, has to be beneficial to the people. Investigative journalists must not be ridiculed and impugned. People like Dumisani Muleya, Hopewell Chingono, whether you agree with his politics or not, but when things are happening and there are people that are coming out investigating and presenting the findings of their investigations, these things affect our nation. They just don't affect a particular leader. And of course, if they do scandalize a leader, a group of leaders, or whatever, they have to fix it. They have to, if they have to be replaced, they have to be replaced. Because again, when we have a country where we want people to be entitled to being the only ones who can run this country, then we are not going to be able to have a country afterwards. So let's say we sort our affairs, our issues, everything. What we need to do now is to look beyond our borders. And we must always think beyond our borders, people. Zimbabwe cannot go this alone. We need to strengthen trade, we need to strengthen education, innovation, partnerships across Southern Africa, beginning with Southern Africa, because we need to do the entire region. We need to build shared green energy grids. We need to open academic exchanges with Namibia, Zambia, South Africa, Mozambique. We need collaboration on water management for the Zambezi Basin. I think we have. There's a collaboration that's going on with the Zambezi water. It's the Zamcom. The Zamcom is the Zambezi Watercourse um, Commission, which accounts for. I mean, the Zambezi Basin is very important for us because it accounts for half of the hydropower generation in Africa, Southern Africa. 250 million derive economic utility from its existence, and it supports agriculture, fishing, up to 50 million people living along its course in the countries of Angola, Botswana, Malawi, Mozambique, us, Zimbabwe, Tanzania, Zambia, Namibia. Who did I leave? Yeah, those countries. So right now, Zamcom is there is an they it's a standing agreement between the riparian states. Um, that's the agreement on the that resulted in the agreement, which was the Zambezi Water Commission, Water Course Commission, that it was established to promote equitable utilization, efficient management, and sustainable development of the river basin that we share. Um, there was earlier this year African Development Bank and one of the Bretton Woods institutions. I think it was the World Bank backed climate investment funds (CIF). They endorsed the Zambezi Region Nature People and Investment Funds um, fund plan, actually, not fund. And they pulled in about 60 almost 60 and a half million dollars to support projects in countries in this the riparian countries I've mentioned earlier. So people must know about these issues because the money sometimes might end up, or they might not see the progress, they might not see the improvements, or for whatever reason or the other. But we just need to, I think we should educate, we should keep each other in the know about what's happening. In fact, I am going to start a website and I will come back with an update on all these projects and things that are supposed to benefit the people of Zimbabwe, especially when the money has been availed. There's so many a time that we've been told that there's no money for that, there's no money for this, there's no money for medicines and stuff like that. But sometimes the money is availed and not by our government, by non-governmental organizations and other people. So we have to know, and knowing what to expect it will help us to participate better. So I'm definitely coming back with the website. Stay tuned. I'll give you the updates, and then I'll be doing my shows on here, and then going onto the website where I'll give the details and provide more other like printables, PDFs, and people can are welcome to hop on and um, if you have a project that you think is important, if you have concerns, if you have things that are good that are happening and you want to share, and just to keep the people inspired, and also if you have ways to get to the authorities, because our Zimbabwean authorities, the MPs, ministers, they're notorious for not being for their their busyness. We cannot get through to them, or when we do get through to them, they just listen, don't care, and move on. So we need to be active. This is our nation, this is our country, and with the way things are becoming elsewhere outside of our country, there's only one way for us to proceed, and that one way is to build our country, to make it a success, and to make it a country where we will all want to live, go back to live and prosper, and we have what it takes to actually be wildly successful. So Zamcom, Zambezi Watercourse Commission, they it's a very good initiative that its aims are to to reverse environmental degradation, strengthen climate resilience, and adoptive livelihoods, faster regional collaboration amongst the riparian nations. Riparian nations are nations that are found along the the banks of the river, the nations that are found along the course of the river. In other words, so yeah, there was I went on the Zamcom website. There's a press release about an event that occurred on the 14th of May this year. Says the Zambezi Watercourse ministers met in Vinda, Namibia, this Thursday, the 15th of May, 2 months ago, to discuss activities of the Zambezi Watercourse Commission, ZAMCOM. Namibia is the current chair of ZAMCOM. Zamcom Council of Ministers (COM) meeting will transact Zamcom business, including adoption of policies and decisions, and provide necessary guidance on the promotion, support, and coordination of the efficient management and sustainable development of the water resource of the Zambezi watercourse. So hey, and then it says here the commission, with financial support of USD 1 million from the Climate Investment Fund (CIF), has prepared a Zambezi Regional Investment Plan on nature, people, and climate. The investment plan was approved in February this year with a commitment of 60 million from the CIF and more funding from the AFDB and the World Bank to be mobilized. So that's a lot of money. You see, another initiative being implemented is a Swedish krona 8.0 million, about 735 USD project titled "Study on Advancing Water Storage Capacity in the Zambezi Watercourse." Selection and pre-feasibility studies of medium-sized infrastructure projects, which is being financed by the SWED fund, will be launched. So it says, as we roll out implementation of the strategic plan of the Zambezi Watercourse, our main focus is to mobilize resources necessary for realization of the desired development objectives, social and economic benefits to the communities in the Zambezi Watercourse. That is Zamcom Executive Secretary Felix Ngamla Ngamla I'm not quite sure how to say that. So you see, an update on the financial contributions of the member states to Zamcom and financial position of the commission will also be provided at the meeting. I did not see that, and you can look it up. You can go on their website, zambezicommission.org. They have all that information. We have to stay in the know, people. We have to know what's happening. So we need more cooperation in this region, in the on the African continent. If we can cooperate amongst ourselves and less with these outsiders who are now beginning to show their true colors. And guess what? When their economies go kaput, they will then look out to us to say, "Hey, can you take us or whatever?" And then we'll be like, we can, but and then we start to reverse and treat them the way they treat us. They'll be immigrants. Nah, we will do it better than they do anyway. So there are some very interesting developments that are happening in the African continent. Like, for example, recently Kenya just scrapped visa requirements for all African nations, except for, is it Libya and Somalia, for security reasons. One can now visit Kenya and stay visa free for up to 60 days. The East African Community Group members can stay even longer, up to 6 months. A welcome development. Ghana had also dropped its requirements for African passport holders in January of this year, and you know they are now joining Kenya and Gambia and Ghana. Sorry, are joining other nations that have already um, um, scrapped visa requirements for African passport holders like Gambia, Seychelles, Rwanda, Benin. So if you're a young professional looking to travel for holiday or whatever, looking for business, go to any of these countries: Kenya, Gambia, Seychelles, Rwanda, Benin. Go see. If you're a cultural specialist, go learn. Go spread our culture. Learn from them. Have a cultural exchange programs. If you are a business person, go trade. It seems some nations have already started implementing their contributions to the African continental free trade area, which is the AFC FTA that was launched back in 21 under African Union, guided by the AU's Agenda 2063, the Africa we want. Look it up. All this stuff is look it up and let's start implementing. The leadership we want after the current leadership is an informed people. We have the internet, not to just do stunts, yell at each other, abuse each other verbally online, but to also learn, to learn a lot, to try and leverage this information that's now available at our fingertips. I'm saying all this so that you have to now think about what kind of nation do we want? What country do you want? Do you want specifically? Let's begin to put together ideas and begin planning for a future. Uh, we can now even start to run for office, run for an office, run for councillor, run for MP, run for anything. Just run and be as well community society minded. Out with the old, in with the new ways of doing things. But that doesn't mean that we are throwing away, discarding the old. No, we are just starting something new, while at the same time we we want to create a new nation based off of our ideals, what we want as a nation. The beauty of our country is just a lot to ignore, trample underfoot. We got this as a gift from God, and we must take care of this gift that we were given by God. We must, in fact, absolutely be productive members of our society. We must, in fact, be thankful, be respectful for one another, be respectful for this life that we were given and this country that we were given with all its beauty, abundance of resources. So, Zimbabwe also ratified the AFCFTA, the Africa Free Continental Trade Area. I think they did it back in 2019. So, like the Wamgele Mene, the AFCTA Secretary General said, we want to turn Africa into the most attractive free trade area in the world, anchored in African solutions for African problems. That's it. I don't need to say anything more. We're a very diverse group, but there are so many underlying interconnected aspects of our different societies. There's so many similarities, and then there are also so many differences. But those differences are not alien. We are not going to be unable to trade with each other, deal with each other. We can, we will. We have done it before, and we can do it again. And as the world is changing right now, falling apart, Africa has a great potential of falling together, coming together, galvanizing. And we don't need the influences of the world anymore. We need to influence the world. We need to go out. What we need to do is to withdraw, organize, be strong. Then we go out there and interact with the world on our own terms. So you, right now listening, this isn't just for policymakers. This whole exercise that now lies ahead of us isn't just for policymakers only. Policymakers are why we are here right now today. They've done things their own way, but as we know, humans have limits. They are not Superman. We've seen that. They are not immune to corruption. We have seen that. But we're saying they did their bit. We are happy and we appreciate. And sometimes we're unhappy, but they have to also have the grace to allow us to also make a determination because the country is ours in as much as it is theirs. It's ours as well. So it is for you, the kid that's working from school, going to school, the kid that's at university, the kid that's sitting down herding cattle, the kid that's working in someone's yard, kid that's working in the bank. And by kid, I'm not talking about little kids. You know what I'm saying? I'm talking about people that are in a position and have the capacity to actually do change something. And even if you are young, you can start emulating, learning, amassing knowledge. By the time that you get to be of age to do any of these things that bring change, yes, you can. We need to start learning for others. I mean, I'm even for having to say for somebody to graduate, they have to be able to do some X amount of hours in community service, whatever it could be. Could be helping older people that need help. It could be fetching water for the elderly in our neighborhood. It could be tending someone's garden. It could be selling stuff and donating the money to some cause. It could be something. It could be anything. So I'm talking to you, the nurse in Bulawayo, the engineer in Guerrero, the teacher in Mashingo, the young woman fighting for your voice in Chitungwiza. I'm talking to you guys as I'm talking to myself as well. Your voice, your work, your vote, your song, it all matters. As Dr. Ibo Mandaza said, the Zimbabwe we want is not just a fantasy. It is a political project. And political projects are built by Abantu, the people. So let's build this together. A Zimbabwe where your name, your tribe, your language do not limit you. A Zimbabwe where the earth beneath us is not a curse, but a blessing. A Zimbabwe where the youth lead, not wait. A Zimbabwe that heals, that teaches, that feeds, that protects, that listens. A Zimbabwe that is finally a home for all of us. And when we create this beautiful home, everybody from this home is welcome to come and rest so that they can rise again tomorrow and go out there and work lovingly, bring in the harvest, share with the rest, and restore the rest. Thank you very much for listening, and I appreciate you stopping by. We'll come back again next time, and we will definitely continue. You take care for now. Cheers.